Hello, and welcome to A Queer Point of View, Friends, Loves, and Life. I'm your host, David Begor. Today's conversation is with someone who fundamentally changed the trajectory of my life back in 1989. I'm talking with Randy Dunbar, a graphic designer, art director, creative director, and friend. Randy and I met in a laundry room at the Chateau des Fleurs in Los Angeles. Yes, we were doing laundry. He introduced me to a world of graphic design while working at Exposure magazine, the same magazine where Ryan Murphy was an editor before becoming the Ryan Murphy we all know today. Over his remarkable career, Randy has been the creative force behind magazines like The Advocate, Genre, Hero, Home Magazine, and YM. He taught graphic design at FIDM for 18 years, influencing countless students with his philosophy that mistakes aren't just acceptable, they're essential. In this conversation, we talk about the creative life, the highs, the lows, from the excitement of 1980s New York to losing an entire generation of friends and colleagues to AIDS. We discuss arrogance and humility, the magic of typography, the promise and peril of AI, and what it means to age as a creative person in a youth-obsessed culture. Randy is honest and reflective. This is a conversation about who we were, who we are, and the enduring power of design to shape how we see the world. Here's my conversation with Randy. Randy Dunbar, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, David. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Do you remember, you and I met in 1989. Do you remember how we met?
Completely.
In the laundry room?
In the laundry room.
At the Chateau des Fleurs?
At the chateau, yes. No, don't dredge that stuff up.
Why not?
That's not one of my finer moments.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on.
Me and Chad at that hotel on Fairfax.
Those were the good old days.
Those were the good old days, yeah, when you had passion. Well, but except, like Zook and I have talked about this. It's always like you're the one that got away.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh. That is so sweet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I'm all flustered.
I like flustering the host.
Well, you and I talked about this a little bit on our last conversation about you're a big influence to me. You're one of those people who is like instrumental in changing the trajectory of my life when you introduced me to graphic design.
Yes. At Exposure magazine.
At Exposure magazine, which, by the way,
you have. Oh my God.
I
have. You've got that?
Yeah, I got the one with James Dean. Yeah, I have this one. I have Sherilyn.
Wait, I
Finn.
want to tell you because it's probably of interest to people out there. Hold up that cover again. James Dean. So, kind of an interesting story. I don't get to tell too many publishing stories. So, Ryan Murphy, the Ryan Murphy, was an editor at Exposure. And he and I went round and round on, hold that up again. I just want to show your audience what I'm talking about. We went around and around on, was it so cold, so hot, or so hot, so cold? I want to just say for the record, I won the battle and Ryan won the money.
He did win the money, didn't he? In the end.
He did win the money. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And I know, I go, why didn't I stay friends with him? Damn it.
I didn't know that he was an editor at that magazine.
He was an editor there. Yeah, no, he was very proud of it. He won a Pulitzer at 18, something like that. He was a very smart, engaged person. And of course, Exposure was so anyway, just to speak to what you're talking about. Thank you, because as you know, I have such they're not the greatest feelings about my profession in terms of any kind of acclaim or things like that. So it's actually pretty good to know on a personal level that you can influence somebody and change their lives, because I think we've all had those people in our lives. For me, it was my teachers, especially like high
Hmm.
school and in college, who sort of heralded my unique ability to do things a little differently, thank God.
That was going to be one of my questions is, did you have a person, like a specific person that sort of pushed you, saw that talent in you and then pushed you in that direction?
Good question. I think in many ways, many people did. I'm not, as I'm got a cold, I'm a little foggy. I'm not thinking of anybody in particular, but I'm just thinking that everybody on the way was very, very encouraging. Like there was a time in my life when, whenever I applied for a job, I assumed I would get it. And back in those days, I did. But I think if I go back, it's probably in college and in high school, English teachers. English teachers just loved me. And so there was one in particular, and he was at Los Angeles City College, and he made me the editor of the poetry magazine, Albumin. And yeah, he probably was the one that sort of said, you've got it, whatever that is, but you've got the goods.
And after the poetry, is that when you started applying for magazines and getting into
No,
magazine
the
work?
the story I like to tell, it's, at a certain age, you develop myths about yourself. It's like you look
Yeah.
back and you go, because I like to tell the story that I'm in Cambridge. I'm not going to Harvard, although I would have loved to, but I'm working at Widener Library running books. I'm there with my friend Lewis Gannett in Cambridge. He's a writer, and I'm running, and then I'm seeing these magazines, especially Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, and I'm sort of going because I loved photography and I loved words. And what was the obvious equation? Magazines.
Magazines.
Magazines. So that is literally in my mind, in my myth, when I had that aha moment of, yeah, I think I want to do magazines. And I came back to Los Angeles and I worked for a magazine called Entrepreneur. And the art director was a guy, I think he fell in love with me, which never hurts. And, it was like, that was it.
Yeah. I one of the in one of the interviews I read about you, there's this quote that you say, and I want to get it right. It's
Yeah, don't misquote me.
no. Your advice to young designers. I really liked this. Study, look, learn, play, make mistakes, and do something wild and unexpected.
I can see me saying that. Yes, that's exactly what I
Well,
believe.
the thing that fascinates me about that is that as a young person, for me, when I was younger, making mistakes, I was terrified of making mistakes. And it took age actually to realize that's how you learn is by
It is how you
making
learn.
mistakes.
Yes. I was an instructor of graphic design at FIDM for 18 years. And when you work with students, you try to instill in them the idea that it's not bad. Mistakes are going to be the things that you learn from. If you just get nothing but success, you're sort of immune to criticism.
Hmm.
So I know in my own life, I don't know about you, but at a certain point in your life, oh God, you do this sort of review of your life, your career mostly, not anything other than your career. Like, I was fired. Why was I fired? Did I deserve it? And I think it's like for me, it's kind of like 50-50. There were things in my life where I just thought I really was stupid, really stupid.
Really? You think that? Like you think
Yes.
that about your
Yes. I'll give you an example. So I'm in New York. I'm working at a magazine called Health Magazine. So great. Why is it great? Because I get to travel. I got to travel all over the world. And it was a great job. And suddenly they bring in, this is the story of my life. Suddenly they bring in a consultant. And if the consultant didn't make me feel like, you know more than me. I just got arrogant. I swear to God, it's true. It's not a joke. But I was reading Ayn Rand at the time. You don't want to be reading Ayn Rand and, try to be equitable with people. So I remember I walked into a meeting and I was brash and arrogant and they fired me. Looking back, I went, yes, I deserved that. I did deserve that. There were some that I did not deserve. It's like I worked for Larry Flint on his only non-porn publication called Code, fashion magazine. I go in one day and the woman says, "Oh, we're going to have to let you go." And it's such a shock to me. And then years later, I was talking to somebody there and they said, "Oh, people had it out for you." And I went, I never think I'm the subject of attention. So I'm just going, what? He said, "Oh yeah, I just never really took into account my measurability."
Mm. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I admired about you, especially, when we first met, you had this confidence in your abilities. And I think you'd been designing for a while by then, but, when you were just talking about being fired because of your ego or how did you phrase it?
Wasn't the work.
How
Wasn't the
long
work.
how long after that did you realize, oh, I probably shouldn't have been so arrogant?
Interestingly enough, a good friend of mine, John Skolitsky, he one day said,
Oh,
I was musing this. I was trying to understand it. And he said, "Randy, you have to understand that you're this kind of person that when you think you're right, you think nothing else matters." And he really instilled in me the notion that it's all about people. It's how you make them feel. So when you go into a job, your
mm,
job is to make your editor feel good about themselves. Not about you or being right. It's about making them feel like, "Oh my God, I've got a worthy companion on this journey called this magazine." So I think in many ways that was a lot of my problem. It was like I just was sort of I you know, we're Libras, we believe in justice and we believe in, that kind of stuff. And I just went, it really doesn't matter when it's compared to how you make people feel. And I did learn that
yeah.
lesson. And I think that is part of the reason I lasted 18 years at FIDM was, I learned that lesson. Just be nice to people. And if you're right, don't brag about it or don't bring it up.
Yeah, one of the things I learned as a graphic designer is that, let the customer in on the designing process. Let them feel like they're
Like,
designing.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a game graphic designers need to play, because there are
Yeah.
people who they don't have the ability, but they sort of want in on it.
Yeah. But again, that took some, again, it takes age, it takes experience, because at first when you're designing, kind of like what you said about that first job, is that I'm right. I'm the designer. I know what I'm doing. Stop questioning me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then,
And unfortunately, especially for young graphic designers, you want to have a strong ego, but you don't want to stray into arrogance.
I'm curious, when you were teaching, did you have a sense of the impact you were making on students? I mean, was there a student you were like, oh my, you are going to be,
Absolutely. You live for those students. I can
yeah.
say this now because it's all in the past. Yes. every every class you looked for that one or two students who had it, who had the gift. And I know their names, I know who they are. I've watched their career and I wasn't wrong. It was like because you just knew, and I mean it's like anything else. Graphic design is just a visual art and now I never went to school for it. That's the irony of all of it. I never took an art class. Although I took one, if the truth be told. I took an album cover design with John Van Hammersveld, if you know who that is. He designed the very famous Endless Summer poster. I don't think he was a great teacher, but it was at Art Center, and that was my one and only graphic design class. So I just went along with it, and the teaching was for me was great because they kept you young And when you came across, and there usually was every semester, there'd be one or two people that you, and it was the game was not to show it, not to show favoritism, not to pull them aside and say, I might have done that
But
on
you want
occasion.
to.
I did. Well, I might have, knowing me, I might have said to one of them, I used to take them outside. I remember we would go outside, not in front of the students, and I would just say, oh my God, your final is a stroke of genius.
Wow. I bet they loved that, hearing that
They
from
loved
you.
it. Yeah. No, and I feel like, you can give compliments freely. Well, they don't take anything out of me.
Yeah. I like you, I didn't finish art school. I started. I was frustrated because I started art school in 1992 after I moved to San Francisco.
Right.
And I was frustrated because the computer part of it was like 2 years down the road. And I was
Right.
complaining to my art teacher about that. And he said, then quit and go get a job. Go out there and get a job. If you want to do it now, go out there and get a job. So I did.
Right.
I got a job designing yellow pages, and that's how I
We all have to
kept
start
going.
somewhere.
That's right. That's right.
No, that's
You
true.
know?
That reminds me so much about, I don't know what year it was. It might have been like, oh God, it had to have been in the 80s, where, we had this thing called paste up, which I just detested. I hated X-Acto knives. I hated T-squares because, you could cut yourself. It was just, and I wasn't a very neat designer. And I was working at a magazine, and they said, we want you to go. I think it was in Memphis or something like that, at a printer. And they said, you want you to go into this room. They're going to show you this new program called Quark Express. And you go in, and it's so primitive, but it's like, they're moving things around and type and everything. And of course, my initial reaction is, oh no, what about the craft? What about the craft of magazine design? And then fast forward a year into the future, and I'm very fortunate because I worked with certain people probably around my age who didn't get it. They didn't get the computer. I embraced it. It was like the answer to all of my faults. There was no T-square, there was no X-Acto knife. The ability to work with type, which is what I really loved, was completely at hand. It was perfect. So, and it's sort of funny because I've been thinking about it recently in terms of AI, which is, think about that. You're in an era where there's something called paste up, then all of a sudden there's something called desktop publishing. Woo!
Yeah.
And everybody went crazy, and everybody thought, to me, it reminds me so much. I was around in, I think it was the early 90s. Bill Clinton was president, and you were working for companies that couldn't give away enough money. Why? Because of this thing called the internet, which was a wild frontier. I'll never forget that. You could download music, you could download a lot of stuff, but it was like, nobody knew. I just remember thinking it's a wild, wild west. And that's where we are now. AI is just, it's a thing, it's a tool. And it's funny, I have older friends, and they're very, very dead set against it. It's like, I don't understand AI. And it's like, well, that's okay. You don't have to understand it.
Well, that's the thing about AI, because ultimately it's not going away.
Not going away.
It is here to stay, and you have to turn it into a tool, right? But I guess I do wonder if it's going to sort of put it, God, what's the word I'm looking for? That it's going to kill the appreciation for good design. Because right now you can go on a website and say, I need a logo, and it just pops out a logo based on a couple of inputs.
How do they look?
I think they look very plain and basic, and they're all
Yeah.
flat, black and white,
Right.
kind of things. But it can do it.
Yeah, I think it actually begs the greater question, which is, I think it's turning everything we know, topsy-turvy. It's, I mean, I'm very happy to hear that, especially with graphic design, because as I like to put it, I haven't seen any graphic design produced by AI that is appreciable. It's like, you know. And
Yet.
there's always going to be certain professions, if you're a nurse, but if you're an illustrator, if you're a photographer, I'm working on this magazine in Palm Springs, and some of the images are AI driven. I said, where did this photo come from? It's so good. AI. And I think that's going to be the dilemma is I think we're going to entering into an era where we're just going to be uncertain about reality. Is this legitimate?
Yeah.
Is this real? Is this the truth? I saw a photograph a couple months ago. It was like Paul McCartney with Phil Collins. Phil Collins is dying. Fake, fake.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But that's going to be the real dilemma because we're really in for, as you know, I'm writing music with the help of AI. And I've kind of, that's been very, very interesting on my mind in the sense of thinking, it's nobody's business how I came to it. It's like I wrote it. It wouldn't exist. I did ask somebody, I said, what is creativity? And in my mind, I said, creativity is creating something from nothing. And if my song if I hadn't asked AI to help me with a song, it wouldn't have existed. Thus, I am the creator.
And you're using it as a tool.
As a tool, yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think what's healthy for me is you got to have an ego. Okay, if AI, I would never let AI write lyrics and song because that's bullshit. You're not having any contribution. I write lyrics. It's funny. I actually had. It's scary to me sometimes how close it comes to what I had in mind. Now that might be just my, superb use of adjectives, but it's like. It's just shocking sometimes just what it sounds like. And as I like to put it, it's like unfortunately I am a musician of very limited ability. I did not have piano lessons, I did not have guitar lessons, and yet I love them, I love playing on them, but I am so limited. And what AI did was it said, here, I can take care of that for you. And it took care of it, and it's shockingly good. I'll never forget the first night I did that. I was like, what? It was so shocking to me because it arranges stuff. I don't know where it gets it. That's the other thing. Where does it get all this stuff?
How does it do that? Well, I think too that it also opens up a whole different level of creativity to people. Like,
Yes,
so you were just saying how you're not like a great musician, but it's helping you, it's showing you what it could be
it's
on a different
completing
level.
something that I'm unable to do in a
Yeah.
in a highly satisfactory way where I'm excited. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see here, guitars and pianos. I could sit there and I have night after night struggling with a melody, struggling with a chord, and it's like, and it's kind of like, well, why wouldn't you? If something came along, it's like the other thing that's interesting to me is people who I have a friend that's like, you know, should I take testosterone? They're wondering about stuff like that, and I'm always going, well, you want to go to the doctor for medicine instead of like I had a friend. I guess he had a heart attack because he was on homeopathic medicines. And then he had a heart attack, and he finally was like, he went to the doctor, and it's like, I said, no, those medicines, homeopathic is not going to solve anything. Medicine is going to solve things. So it's a little bit like that for me. It's like, yeah, the AI is the professional here. It's got access to the world. You
Yeah.
know,
I think there's going to actually be AI is going to go for a while. People are going to try it out. They're going to do different things. But I think eventually there's going to be a swing back to authentic human creative work. Like
maybe.
from,
Don't know. I
I think that
actually,
I think there'll be an appreciate like for live shows and
yes,
for
okay.
um, creative, like, I don't know if magazine work will eventually go. I personally think magazines are kind of printed magazines are slowly making their way out, a very slow death.
Oh, okay. Not good.
But no, no, I think I'm kind of saddened by that. but there may be a swing back to magazines that I think you mentioned it in an interview where there'll be highly specialized magazines
Yes.
and highly specialized works of art that
Yes.
are created by a human for humans.
You know, let's say, for example, I'm writing something and I need to, I do this all the time. I still do on occasion write movie reviews. I dreaded having to write about the plot. Like, why do I have to write about the plot? I just want to express my opinion. And AI is so great about AI. What is the plot of this movie? Succinctly, it gives me a paragraph with the plot, and I go, "Thank you." Now, it doesn't know what I think, so I'm not in jeopardy there. But it takes care of some of the um
The drudgery work.
the drudgery
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
Writing letters. That is probably where I mostly use it. I'm always soliciting people to send me on some exotic adventure so I can photograph it and write about it. And it writes these letters. Now, listen, it hasn't got a very good scorecard, but it does write these insanely good letters. Or here's a better example. If I say, "Who is the PR contact for the Four Seasons in Chiang Mai?" It will tell you who it is, and it will give you their email address. Now, could I go and look
Wow.
for it? Maybe.
Sure.
But why spend 20 minutes on something that takes 2 minutes or even less?
Yeah. I actually use ChatGPT to help me with cooking
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
when I have recipes, and or if I'm missing something that's in the recipe, I say, "Okay, well, help me substitute this. What can I do?" And it's kind of amazing.
It is.
Like for
Speaking of that,
recipes,
it's so funny because during Thanksgiving, I'm going back to learning from your mistakes. I'm not sure if I'm learning from my mistakes, but I do not. I cook, and people tend to love my cooking, but boy, I fail terribly. Especially like the other day, I tried to make carrot soup. Bad.
oh,
Thanksgiving, I tried to make cranberry sauce, no sugar in it. Bad. Throw it out. I throw it out. I waste a lot of money on my Epicurean mistakes.
I remember you being a very good cook.
What?
I remember you being a very good cook. You used to
No,
cook
no,
all
no.
the
I
time.
I am, but unfortunately, it's like I don't do sugar anymore, and that's a damper on it because if you're just trying to end, I did discover via Julia Childs a few years ago butter. I realized the secret was butter.
It's
You
true.
have to use butter is the secret to getting people to like your meal. It's
Yeah.
true. It's
Butter.
just
I use
true.
butter in a lot of things.
A
Yeah.
butter. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I met
Yeah.
Julia Childs.
Really?
I
What
did.
was that like?
Well, I was the art director of Home Magazine, and we went to Boston for a taping of This Old House. And she was there with her husband, who was just this tiny little man, and she was 6'1". She was huge. She was an Amazon, and then I was with this guy named Joe Ruggiero. Joe Ruggiero. Where do I know that name? Joe Ruggiero. And that's all I remember.
I'm
And I
glad
do
you
have
brought up
stories
Home Magazine.
that I can't reveal publicly yet.
They'll be in your memoir.
Well, that's really interesting to me. So, um, I have a website and I have a section called Confessions of a Gay Art Director. Why? Because I wanted to tell my side of the story. So when you go there, the first one I tackled was In Magazine in Los Angeles. Okay. I'm going to tell the story because I want it out there in the public. I was fired. Very, no heads up, nothing. I was told by the editor that, and I have it in a letter somewhere, he said, "Oh, the publisher was embezzling and they couldn't pay you." I went, "Okay, that's an answer." Now I have that. But so this is on Planet Homo, which I've had for, I don't know, 30 years now. I do nothing with it. Um, but it's there. It's called Confessions of a Gay Art Director because, and I have a story about when I was the art director of The Advocate. You know, there was some things that happened there. You know, there's things that happen at every magazine. It's just they're not, they don't spark public interest for some reason.
I'm glad you brought up Home and The Advocate, because one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because you've worked on many different magazines
Many.
with actually completely different subjects.
Yes.
Did you have a favorite?
Huh. Great question. You know, I think, you know, as I look through, I think Exposure, although, you know, so brief, whatever, that was a 6 month, you know, until that got shut down. I think the year that I spent at the Advocate, because I met everybody. You know, what's that kid that died? I can't remember his name, from Florida, Pedro. You know, talking to him on the phone. I would meet and talk to people. It was a very, very informative year of my life because the Advocate was, you know, and I worked for the crazy editor, Richard Villard, you know, who's kind of crazy. So each magazine, you know, I think about something, you know, Home magazine. What I think about is they let me design my office, which I just loved. You know, as long as I didn't have to answer to, that was always my problem. I didn't really like answering to people. So, and that's why, you know, in the end, so for example, when I was at Genre, working with the beloved Andy Toll, who's now a millionaire, you know, I made myself executive editor because I just went, that's where the power, hey kids, the power is with being an editor, not an art director, in my mind. So I made myself executive editor because I was just like, he kept getting, everyone was like, oh, Andy, you're doing such a great job. Andy, I'm so sorry to bring this up. You know, Andy is like, he's doing such a great job. And it's like, hey, I'm designing this thing. I'm writing this thing with Andy. But, you know, the editor got all the acclaim. I sound bitter, don't I? I
No,
am
you
bitter.
don't sound bitter.
So I'm writing a music called Bitter Old Queens. Taking it from my first-hand experience being bitter.
Did you have one? Would you say that you had a magazine that you wish you had not worked at?
I can't. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure somewhere in that long history. By and large, they all. I mean, the thing that I love the process. I do. I love
Yeah.
editors. I loved editorial meetings. I did. I just love them. I love sitting in a room with people, with smart people, talking about topics and, you know, what are we going to do? What is this? You know, what's going on in the world now? I love that process. So for me, I think every magazine, I just can't think of any. I mean, I know when I was at Entrepreneur, he had me go out and interview. The thing I never liked doing was going and interviewing business people. That was always kind of a bore. And interviewing people I never liked because you had to transcribe, and it was, you know, now you just get AI to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there
The
were
whole
magazines that where the subject matter wasn't as. But you know, as I look back, I go, no, you know, I was the creative director of YM magazine. You know, how fun was that? Got to work with a lot of people.
yeah.
A lot of great people.
Yeah.
Art director of The Advocate, art director of Genre, art director of Hero. That was an interesting. That was certainly an interest. The sort of reoccurrent theme on all of these is they die. You know. So
The
what I
magazines.
know best is watching magazines go through their disintegration.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think they eventually just sort of, is it people just lose interest in that style of magazine, in that type of magazine?
Well, no, I think there's a lot of factors. You know, like Hero was. Were you familiar with Hero at all?
No,
It
I
was a
don't think
great
so.
magazine. It was for couples, gay couples. Now that's a
I don't
pretty
know.
unique conceit. It's like, okay, we're going to be a magazine about relationships. You know, they're not going to be the nasty, sexy stuff like Instinct or anything like that. And I think there's so many factors that go into it because it's like you've got to raise revenue. Now, listen, I'm the first person to say I personally never quite understood advertising. I didn't
Hmm.
understand why putting an ad in a magazine equaled income. It did equal presence. You know, you look at magazines now like Harper's Bazaar. There's Prada. There's, you know, a lot of very, very fabulous designers, and they're selling one outfit. But it's really about their prestige. It's prestigious to be in those magazines. So I just think it's like For a magazine, you've got to have a great sales staff that knows how to go out and sell it. And then the times change. I was at Hero during the 2000s. When the clocks changed and we all thought we were going to go away. And I just remember it was a very difficult time to sell magazines. Then, as you know, the reasons now people aren't reading magazines is because everybody. This is what happens today. Everybody is on their phone. I was just in
Hmm.
Japan. You get on a train, 90% of people are on their phones. They're not talking to each other. Everywhere you go, you're in the market, people are on their phones. Looking at a magazine on a phone is not great. That's why I do go to, and I think it's a smart idea, which is for magazines, be beautiful. Be something that a phone can't be, if that's possible.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I haven't bought a magazine in a long, long time, probably years, because I look at all the magazines through the Apple's News
Now
app.
I do, I do. I just recently renewed my. I renewed it because I think it's beautifully designed, which is a magazine. Now they're online magazines. I don't pick up paper. I go online. Fast Company is a great looking magazine. Really, really good magazine. I took out a subscription to Esquire. Why? Because it's got 40 years worth of great layouts. That is what informed me. A guy named Robert Priest and April something. Those two people during the 80s working for Esquire, they informed me. That's when I pulled pages out and I went, this is great, because it was typography, photography, and it was Esquire. And I read Esquire. I like to tell the story. There was a great article in Esquire about the Hydrox cookie and the Oreo and the battle between them. And great art to me, art is creating something from nothing. Great art is getting someone interested in something they didn't think they were interested in. Love that. I read the damn article about the Oreo and the Hydrox cookie because it was kind of a battle between those two companies. Hydrox did win, by the way. No, Oreo won. We don't even know what a Hydrox cookie is anymore.
I
So
I have no idea what that
no,
is.
but magazines are, that's why I love them. They're informative, they're entertainment, but they're also like a way to, they're such an interesting way to dispense information. Infographics, which are not going to go away, are such an interesting aspect of graphic design. A timeline. There's just things you can do that they're important to me. They're important. Information is important.
Typography is a big deal to you.
Completely.
I used to love, for years on Facebook, every now and then you would post picked up images that you would create with letters, like for the month or
Or
for.
though I just saw those. I saw those the other day. Or I was thinking about putting a collection together for people's birthdays. When I had a lot of energy, I would design these completely typographical happy birthday cards, and I loved it. I loved it. It took nothing. I didn't sweat it at all. It would come to me. I love. I think I'm going to date myself here, probably during the 70s and 80s, I used to take type specimen books and go to lunch. I was that much in love with them. And I just loved, and who knows why? No one knows why they love anything. I just happen to love type. I love the way it looked. There's shapes, there's personalities in it. And to this day, as I'm working on this new magazine, I'm always kind of going, okay, what, because I was thinking for this magazine I'm working on now, I don't want to be Palm Springs Life. I want to be a little granny about it. And fortunately, the editor is kind of with me on that. I would not like the idea of granny, but what I mean by granny is it's all serifs. There's not a sans
Hmm.
serif in sight. Why? Because I want it to be a little old school.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I get that.
but type is, and I get that it sounds crazy to people. And when I was teaching, oh my God, the movie Helvetica, I must have seen that 50 times. I can almost quote verbatim. And sadly, most of those people are gone. There's some really great people in that documentary. But I loved it because, and it actually gave me, I hadn't been a great appreciator of Helvetica until that movie. And then I went and I started using Helvetica. I was always the Franklin Gothic guy, which is very similar. But no, it was great that a documentary could be about a typeface. The history of it, it's because it is the most popular typeface, sans serif typeface in the world.
Well, and a lot of typefaces are based off of it, right? Like
Complete
one of my
everything. It's a
favorite.
ripoff. Well, the biggest
Yeah,
ripoff of all was Apple.
yeah. One of my favorite typefaces is Texta, which is very, very similar to Helvetica. They're
Right.
almost identical. And yeah. So are you the kind of person who goes around like, if you see a billboard or you
Completely.
see another
I can't help
and just
myself.
like
No,
you redesign it in your head?
it's horrifying. No, I go by and I go Helvetica, Futura.
But do you look at it and go, "Oh, you know what? That would be better if they had done this," or like, if they had,
I'm
if the,
always. I don't know if you know what kerning is,
yeah.
especially kern. Well, here's a little. To me, one of the interesting. This is what inspired me to get into graphic design. As I'm a kid, and my father was an auto mechanic, and I was around cars a lot, and I fell in love with logos of cars, primarily the Imperial logo, the Imperial car logo. It's so gorgeous. It's jazz. It's fanciful and sleek and sexy. That's what first got my mind on type. I just went, wow, type can do things, and that's really the bottom line. Type can do things. I don't know if you've seen, the White House. They're using this just horrible script, and to me, it's lazy.
For all the
Yeah,
signs
for
they
the
put
the
up
Oval
around.
Office. Yeah, it's just a very
Yeah,
old. And
it's
then with
awful.
script, you always got to be careful because the kerning is off. You're not connecting. And it's bad. So yes, I go around. It's a torment. It really is, because everywhere you go, there is bad typography,
And typography can be magical.
and it can be well when it's done well. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Well, that's why I'm saying if you look at this, if you look at Fast Company magazine, that art director, not just the art direction, but with the typography, does some really, really interesting things. And I've always been a creature of inspiration. I before I do a job, I've always done this. I go and I look back. That's why I have my Esquire for 40 years. I go back to the 80s. I go to the 90s. I know who the art directors were. I know what they were doing because they were all, it was a prestigious magazine. And like GQ was at one time like a very, very prestigious magazine. It is now, but we're in an era where it's almost like the call is for bad design. It's very strange to me. Look at GQ sometime. It's like the typography. It's like it's nearly graffiti, and that's a great question. Is graffiti typography?
hmm, I I don't have an answer for that,
It is. How could it
quite
not be?
honestly.
It's a shape. Think about it. What is typography but a shape that connotes a alphabetical character? You put them together,
And
you have a
graffiti does
word.
do that. Yeah,
And
graffiti
graffiti.
does do
And
that.
no, because I have fights with people about like graffiti. Because I'm sort of like, no, I don't like it. Vandalism. I don't like vandalism. I don't like graffiti. But when you take the train, to go, I go to like Costa Mesa on the train. You go through these like stockyards where there's nothing but walls with graffiti. Some of it is good. Some of these people got handwriting talent. They do.
Do you have designers today, or even art directors or creative directors that you admire?
Well, as I just said, the person, whoever it is at Fast Company, I think is doing really, really great work. There's somebody out there in the world who I worked with. I sat next to him, Fabian Barone. And Fabian has gone on to, like Ryan Murphy, he went on to become, he's quite legendary now at this point. He designed everything. He designed Madonna's book, he designed the Zara logo, he designed Harper's Bazaar. And I watch his career. He's French. And I watch his career because, he's moved into film. He just did like, I forget who it is, like, like he directed a Prada commercial or something like that. And, for me, the question is always like, I left New York because of AIDS. I just, I couldn't take it anymore. And I go, it's second guessing yourself in life. It's like, I don't know if I did the right thing leaving New York, but I
That was
also don't
actually
dwell on it because you know what? What's the point? It's done.
that was going to be my next question about, do you regret or do you feel like you missed out on something in life because you moved away from that?
Probably more than most people. Is I have so many regrets. I really do.
Well, that's the
And
Libra in you.
yeah, I guess. I don't know what it is, but I mean, I just know when I'm talking to people, it's like, no, I have a lot of regrets. And I'm not happy about that, but that's just the way it is. I regret certain things that I've done. I just have a lot of regrets. That's all.
Yeah, but that doesn't, I
Shoot
mean,
me.
I'm not going to shoot you. But, I consider you, and, I consider you a great designer. You're always an influence on me. Whenever I see your stuff, I think, okay. And I try to, like when you would post that stuff on Facebook, I would then try to emulate it. How can I make this? How can I
Wow.
take what I'm
Okay.
seeing and use it in the work that I do? Because I don't think that I think I'm a good designer. I don't think I'm a great designer, and that's okay. I don't have that passion about it that other people do. But when I see really good stuff, I think, oh my God, how can I do that? And then I try it and see, and I think that that helps me be a little more creative
Right.
because it opens something up in me. So you may have regrets, but you should also know that I think, in your work, in your body of work, and in your teaching at FIDM, you have inspired a lot of people.
I thank you. I think, unfortunately, I don't. I think about that and I go. I mean, that's crossed my mind, but I don't dwell in that house of favor. It's like, okay, you know what I'm saying. What do you do with that information?
Does it make you uncomfortable?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I never like the spotlight on me. It's like, my
Yeah.
friend John's always like, "Why don't you get on stage?" And it's like, John, if I wanted to be on stage, I would have got on stage. It's like, I know me. No, I'm not shy, but I remember once, many, many years ago, I was working in a magazine called Movie Line, and this girl, she said, "Oh, I know who you are," and then I did this. I did it was for the InDesign users group. It was like three art directors, and people would come up to me afterwards and they're like, "Oh, I admire your work so much," and I was just sort of like, and I think for me it's like, because I've never, because here's the real regret. I have no business sense at all.
Oh,
I
same.
lack that. I lack that. And so, yes, I probably had the talent. Could I parlay that into something monetary? No. I'm always feeling like I'm struggling. So, that's why I'm saying, what good is it? Because it's like, I could feel like I'm king of the world, but if I can't get a job, and I'm at a point in my life where, out of habit, this morning I look at jobs and no one's going to hire me, because it's like, they're not going to hire grandpa, which is very, very sad, because I'm still in the game. In my mind, I'm still loving it. So,
I just had a conversation with someone, an 81-year-old, who was talking about the invisibility of getting older. That you sort of, whether you want to or not, you end up sort of disappearing into the background because youth is always put on a pedestal
true.
ahead of you.
But isn't that always the way it's been?
Yes, that is the way it is. That is, and I think we have to, well, like I think you do it. we have to put ourselves out there constantly, even as we age, as it becomes uncomfortable, because I think the more uncomfortable, or not the more uncomfortable, being uncomfortable is like making a mistake. It's a learning process. It helps you learn. It helps you grow. Being in that space.
Sorry.
That's
What was
okay.
the last part?
Being in that space, in that uncomfortable space, helps you grow.
Yes. Yes.
And, it's like making mistakes helps you learn.
Right.
But I think it's easier for people to just say, you know what, I'm uncomfortable. I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm just going to
Well,
quietly step to the side.
let's think about that. Put yourself, if you're 75 years old, what does putting yourself out there mean? Going out to bars?
No, 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 no. I'm talking about in just being creative or being anything in your life that makes you feel like, well, for example, uh, doing this podcast.
Right.
This podcast, not so much now, but when I started it, made me really uncomfortable. And I'm doing it because it makes me so uncomfortable.
But that's great to do things that don't. That's great. Always do
Yeah.
things that make you slightly uncomfortable.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
No, keep doing it.
But I think as we age, it becomes easier to not do that because
Probably. Again, it's a little foreign to me because I don't feel that way. I mean, anyone wants to interview me, I'm available. I like talking, and
it's true. You do love to talk.
No, I do love to talk, and I love being interviewed. I mean, the more questions, the better. So yeah, but I don't feel no. The invisibility is more on a emotional. In your neck of the woods, Udo Kier just died. The actor, like who I knew, 81 years old. That's not that far away from me, and I'm going. I don't know how much time I have left. I really don't. I live a it's insanely healthy lifestyle, but I just don't know. That has no, that has nothing to do with it. You can fall over tomorrow. Um, and so for me, that's always at the back of my mind. It's like I got to get things done because there's things I still want to do.
Yeah.
So the invisibility is not a factor for me in the sense of, if I go out with friends to a bar, I'm not expecting any attention. It's like that's not the game anymore. So I'm invisible on a sexual level, yes, but and that's also, boy, is that an interesting topic because I went to Thailand with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a epiphany moment where it's like I am no longer in the game at all. It's sad. It's a very sad thing when you realize that your sexual life, other than your husband, is over. It's just over.
Mm.
It's going to be rare that someone. Now I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying that's my experience. It's like no one's going to flirt with you. Um, and again, I just sort of go, it does make sense to me. It's like, yeah, all right, we're not meant to be, objects of desire in our age. I look at my neighbors right up the street, they're 86. And I look at their lives and I go, they're just happy to get out of the house once in a while.
I'm happy to get out of the house once in a while.
Yeah, well, no, that's part of the age is that you become so comfortable with your cocoon.
Yeah.
It's like, but I'm sort of like I force myself.
Yeah.
It's like I just force myself to have to be in like you said, being slightly uncomfortable is not unhealthy. Quite healthy.
Do you have an area of your life that you are nostalgic about? Is there like
Yes. I think about. I look at friends who maybe are 10 years younger than me or whatever, and they have a group of friends, like 6 or 7. Now, I do have my group of friends, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But do I have my gay group of friends? I don't, because I lived in New York in the 80s, and if you took 10 people, 8 of them died. And these were interesting people. The art director of GQ, the art director of Vanity Fair, all really, really viable, interesting people, and they're all gone. And I just go, I don't want to get sentimental about it, but I do think like, gosh, if they'd been still around, we'd be growing old together. We'd probably be going on cruises together, because it's kind of like, no, you're, and it's hard to make friends, as you get older. It just is. I
That
was
was going to
on
be,
a,
go ahead.
I was on a, I took, I'm big on doing solo cruises. And I took one, and what was it? What's that word he said? I got shadowed or something like that. But like I met these people, and I thought they were interesting, and I'm like, oh great, let's hang out tomorrow. Never heard from them. Ghosted. He said, you got
Ghosted,
ghosted. I said, ghosted. What's
shadowed. I
that?
like
I
that.
had to look it up. It's like, no, I got ghosted, and it was like for the first time in my life, I was ghosted. It was like, now, you have
Mm.
to remedy that quickly by going, I ain't going to think about it. I went to Cozumel and got on a motorbike and, rode off into the sunset. I said, I'm not going to let that get me down, but I
Yeah,
did get ghosted for the first time in my life.
yeah. When you brought up the whole AIDS era, I was going to ask you about living in New York and that whole creativity being surrounded by people who are no longer here. What was that like? I mean, that must have been an amazing time.
Amazing, horrible time.
Well, yeah, there's the horrible side of it, but before that, the creativity must have been surrounded by all these artists and people
But
who
when
were
you're in it, you
just,
don't think about stuff like that. We're gonna in 10 years. Hopefully, we're gonna look back at this. When you're in it, you're not really conscious of the ramifications of it. So I look at it like,
yeah,
when I was in it, I was living my life. I was in my 30s, 35, and I met these group of people, and I enjoyed them. It was a great time, but then they started dying. It was the thing I do know about myself, I'm, very, very sensitive to that stuff. People having friends die was not, I think I closed off emotionally, because it was so many people. Yeah, I don't know about you, but, at this point in my life, death is no stranger to me. It's like a lot of people are gone, and you try to figure out what does that mean that, they're gone? What happened? Why am I here?
hmm
So yeah, I think things would have been different. But New York, it was a very interesting time. As I like to put it, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Yes, the early 80s were so exciting. Everything was happening. Then, boy, 83, 84, uh, this disease happened, and, it started taking people. It was like, I forget, there was a photographer, a friend of mine, and was like, how are you? I'm sick, And then a week later, it's like their funeral. It's like, what?
mm.
Do you know what I'm saying? I don't think we really quite processed it properly in terms of the devastation of that. To this day, I sort of go, I'm not sure I've really processed all that. 40, 50 years
Even,
later.
yeah,
Even
okay.
today, I just go, it's so devastating that, I mean, because what can you do? You have a breakdown? I think I did that.
Yeah, several.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very sad period of time. And younger people don't get that, which is nor should they. They don't have to get it.
No, no. Although I was talking to someone who said that he's probably in his, I think he was in his 30s. He said that he missed out on having a mentor because his people that would have mentored him
Died.
died.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So there's a whole generation that sort of missed out on that.
Well, when you look
And
at the block of people, everybody I knew on some level was creative. Dancers, photographers, art directors, designers. Everybody was. That's why I just think it's like, what would have? I mean, again, I don't tend to like what ifs, but it's like, well, what if that hadn't happened? What would the world be like? Would it be changed? I think it would. I just think it would be different. But that's not what happened. And the reality is that no, a extremely devastating disease happened. It stole so many, the best of us. It really did. The best of us.
If you could go back now, like, actually, I'm going to save that question. What were you like as a teen? Were you creative in your teenage years?
I'm trying to think. I think of myself as kind of a late starter in the sense that I remember, like in high school, I didn't quite know who I was. Listen, I think my teens were the worst period ever. So much confusion. But I knew I was creative. I mean, what I used to do as a kid, because I was obviously very influenced by the Beatles, was I used to sit there and make up album covers, and I'd write all the songs. I was very attracted. That's why I did that album cover design, because I probably should have done album covers. But yes, I think I was very creative. And then when I went into college, and I had a just an instinctual thing to not do things in the usual manner. When you quoted me earlier, I try to not do things in typical fashion. It's just been my mantra through life. It's like, I'm not going to do it the way you expect. And if you had a great teacher, they loved that. They because they were so bored with people doing the expected. And I can't even tell you what the tangents were, but I would just go off and do things a little differently. And I dwelled on that. I'm going to do things a little differently.
And you still do that.
And I still do that. Yeah.
I think at least I see that in you. Yeah.
Yeah, the way I dress, it's like when I went to FIDM, nobody got dressed up. It was me and a couple. There were like two other people there that got dressed up, but I'm teaching at a fashion college, and it was the New York. New York did that to me because I loved wearing suits. I have 20 suits. I loved wearing suits. And I loved getting dressed up. It made me feel different.
Would you go back to that young person and say, stick with the album covers, keep doing that? Or what would you say to them? What would you say to Randy Dunbar as he's exiting high school, entering art school?
I would say, Randy, go get a business degree.
Yes, that is what I would say to myself too. Stop with all the other stuff.
Get a business degree. Don't be afraid of money. Do you remember? This is so funny. My memory is so. You and I were in a restaurant, and you had a billfold. Do you remember what I said to you about the money? It's funny that you had a crumbled bills, and I said, David, money. You got to treat money like a person. I said, you get these crumpled up bills, smooth them out, treat them like what they are. They're your friends. Money. It was funny because I'm thinking like that, whatever that is, 30, 40 years ago. It's funny the things you remember. It's like, no, I remember that so distinctly.
Wow, I don't remember that at all.
But I don't know. I don't think, all in all, it's like, I'd love 20 more years. That would be great. But, my life has been my life. And I don't think about things that I don't deal with hypotheticals, like what if. It's like, no, this is a life I've led. I've been very, very happy at periods. I've been very unhappy at periods. And I think that's life. It's like, it's a spectrum. Now, I wouldn't mind being on the spectrum because those people are very talented.
Maybe you are on the spectrum.
Well, no, I don't think, because I saw David Byrne, who talked about, he said, in his youth, he thought he was on the spectrum. No, here's the summation. I've always thought I'm very good at a lot of things, and I would have traded it in to be a genius at one.
Oh, I don't know if I would.
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like, let's say it's photography. Okay, so I'd be a famous photographer. I think I'm deluded. Because it's like I had so many interests. I was good at so many things, but I wasn't particularly brilliant.
I see. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now again, that's just sort of a summation because it's like at this point, I ain't changed a thing. It's like it's done.
Well, yeah. But is that the advice that you would give out to young designers now? Find something to focus on besides going to business school?
Uh, this
Or,
we're
I
gonna
mean,
enter into
because,
my controversial opinions about things.
well,
I
because,
Yes.
well, I'm asking because I think one of the things that makes you, this is such a stupid statement. One of the things that makes you, you, one of the things that to me that I admire about you is that your creativity is all over. I mean, it's just like from photography. I still have, I wish I brought it out for this. I still have this picture that you created when we were dating way, way back in the day. It's a black and white, actually, it's sepia tone. It's an art hand, one of those wooden
Oh yeah, yeah,
art
yeah.
hands. And it's just beautiful. The way it was shot, the way you framed it, everything. It was just really beautiful. And I guess one of the things that I've always admired about you, and I've tried to like, I don't know, emulate, is that you take the time to understand the thing that you are trying to create. You it feels, well, it feels like to me that you look at something and you study it and you get into it. It's almost like molding clay in a way. You I don't know.
Here's the secret. I don't think about it. That's what I was going to say to you. That my controversial
Well,
opinion
that's
is
frustrating.
it. No, it is because I can say this because I'm not teaching and I'm not around students anymore. But it's very much like that. A good analogy. You're watching American Idol, right? You got
Hmm.
three people in the end. Three people. They're all great singers. One person is the winner, not necessarily the best, because to be the best requires something special that you can't manufacture. Charisma, luck. Luck is very big on my thing. It's like, so as you go through life, I don't think about those things. I don't sit down and go, and maybe this is my fault. Maybe my it's not good. I just do. I don't overthink things. I think overthinking is a real bad thing. I just go and I do it. And I just go, if it works, I'll know. If it doesn't, because there's plenty of things I can't do. I can't paint for shit. I tried, you know, get me a
Yeah, but you
canvas.
tried.
I tried and I was like, oh my God, I'm not good at this, you know, but I just don't think about it too much. I mean, that's sort of a weird thing to say. I just don't dwell in the house of thinking about what I'm doing because I think then you become self-conscious.
Yeah, I can actually relate to that because I overthink. It's like when I don't think I do it so much now, but I used to over design.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I'd put everything but the kitchen sink in there. And then people would be like, maybe pull this out or pull
Well,
this
knowing when to stop is a
simple.
real creative hardship for everybody. You know, you got a song 7 minutes long. Knowing when to stop. I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel a little blessed in that because I have a lot of friends that overthink, and I see where it's stifling. It's stifling. It's like, they can't put one foot forward, and it's like I just go and do it. It's like, and I do it because I like doing it and I'm having fun.
And can you recognize it in the moment? Like when you design this magazine, when it's done, can you go, that's really good. That's good.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
done.
I can do that. Yes,
Yeah.
I can look back fairly on works, and I can go, but it's like listening to your own voice. I'm not objective. I don't, yeah, I think everything I do is good. I don't think it is, but I mean, I know I've turned out mediocre design, and I know I've turned out some good design. So I think that's kind of the way it is.
Yeah. I can look back on stuff now and go, oh, that's so much better than I was in my head at the time.
But see,
Yeah.
here's the problem. Like the other day, I did one of these birthday things for my friend Carol Draper, and I had it, like I was on Bridge. I love going through Bridge, going through my all my work, And there was this card, and I just went, damn, that was good. It's like the letters put together. Now, what do I do with it? Now I have, here's a real confession. I have recycled. I did for Greg Gorman. I would send year after year the same card, because he would never say anything, you know. But you got a great design, and it's like it's personal. It's her name. What am I going to do? Get her a coffee mug with her name on it? I've done that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
That was the thing I did. Again, like kind of what you're talking about. I still do it. Not so much anymore. I love designing watches, shower curtains. I love designing and there are people out there like that. There's people out there that they're creative. That's who they are. Some people are good at business. Some people are good at creativity. And I just love, especially the watches were so much fun. I gave them away at Christmas as Christmas gifts, and had my
that's
little
cool.
name on it and some little design. Now, were they the best? No, probably not. Although some actor did want to get a copy of one of them, so that was good. Um, but yeah, design. I mean, again, for me, it's an intuitive thing. That's probably why I didn't go to school. Do I think my life would be different had I gone to school Yeah, I do. I do. Amongst
Well,
my
yeah,
regrets, no degree.
yeah. That that's the same for me. Yeah. I
No
wish
degree.
I
I
had
I'd love. I did
forced
teach.
myself through.
I'd love to be teaching. I love teaching. I loved it. I did teach. I'd love to go back to Art Center. It was so great to go to that campus and teach. But oh, do you have a doctorate? Like, no. You're going to really get me started about that because the American academic system is fucked up. It's like, wait a minute, I have 50 years of experience versus the 25-year-old with a degree. Who
Yeah.
knows more?
Yeah.
Crazy.
It is crazy. I agree. Well, I told you this would only be an hour. We're a little over an hour.
We're on 11/11. You know what that means?
11:11. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
11/11 is a sort of means the angels are watching out for us.
Oh, I need it.
Look it up. Look it up. 11/11.
Okay. I had a question
And
in
I
my
will
head
be,
because
by
you.
the way, I will be starting December 15th. I'm going to be in your neck of the woods for two
Oh,
weeks.
good.
I'll be there. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm going to call John back. I'm going to go to a New Year's Eve. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't even know if I want. I start to think ahead. It's like going to West Hollywood. Oh, parking. You start thinking ahead, like, oh, that's horrible.
Wait, before you go, I do have a question.
Yes.
I'm looking at your website, randydunbar.com.
Yes.
I was looking at your inspiration page, which there's some really cool things on there, but I'm really curious about the CBSI logo.
The CBS logo?
Why is that inspiring?
Because it's so simple. Because the fact of the matter is great design is always simple. And that logo, which was the logo, it was who designed, I remember who designed that, but it's iconic. It's like the peacock, NBC logo. Iconic. Does ABC have a logo? No, well, I don't know what ABC stands for. Do you? I know it's like that funny little Futura lettering, but it has no icon. So the CBS logo to
Right.
me was, when you get into logo, those kind of not typography logos, but pictorial logos, that was kind of, the fact that it lasted so long.
Yeah. Okay. I get that. I get that.
Yeah. Well, there's guys back then, in the 50s. There's a bunch of designers back then, just great stuff.
Mm-hmm. The Mad Men era.
I've been
Yeah.
watching the reruns of Mad Men.
I saw that they were released on HBO. Did you see that there was an article about how somehow they got the wrong files and they were showing like outside the scene stuff?
I didn't see that. I mean, I was sick and I've been watching nonstop. I watched probably 12 episodes. No, and then when what's his face vomits, I was like, no. What's interesting to me about watching Mad Men was this is how your things change. I went, I didn't think of it at the time, but I went, my God, John Hamm is a very good looking man. I didn't think that before. Now, and I hear they did it like in high definition or something like that.
Hmm.
So he's, at certain points, his hair is shiny. His face is, it's just like, I went, my God, that man is, everybody in that show is kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. No,
Yeah.
I loved Mad Men because I just thought the writing was just so, the
It's
plot
good.
was so good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. Randy, thank you so much for sitting with me and just talking, rambling,
Well,
telling
thank
us.
you, thank you for getting me out of my sick bed and up and around. And I appreciate all those just very, very sweet and kind remarks you've given to me. I will be floating for a week or so, and I will be down there. I'll
Wow.
be down there, and I will be seeing you soon.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you, Randy.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Queer Point of View, Friends, Loves, and Life. You can find me on Substack, YouTube, and Blue Sky, all at David Bigor. DM me some questions, send me some ideas, or just say hi. If you have a moment, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm David Bigor. Until next time, be bold, be free, and most of all, be you.